People, when I say Star Trek Discovery is the worstest show ever, I am not speaking in hyperbole. It is not exaggeration, sarcasm, a jest, or a ploy. And I am not kidding. Star Trek Discovery is so ugly, so stupid, so utterly without even one redeeming moment, scene, or line. There really is no way for me to adequately convey the depth of my loathing for this low point in human history, except perhaps by way of metaphor.
Dreamers of all ages, I present Doomcock. I'm pretty sure metaphor is the only way you can express the depth of your loathing for something outside of, like, physically assaulting the cast and crew. Anyway, for those familiar with me personally, you know I have a particular fascination with the YouTuber known as Dicktor Van Doomcock. A YouTube critic who I can only assume is Michael Jackson with his head permanently stuck in an economy-sized pickle jar and is making the best of a bad situation. Doomcock, or Overlord DVD, has risen to prominence by basically making things up about popular franchises like Star Trek, Star Wars, and anything else that has recently included a woman, a black person, a gay, or any combination thereof, then saying it's the death knell of the franchise. Doomcock has been predicting the demise of modern-day Star Trek since Discovery aired 4 years ago. 2 live-action shows in their 2nd and 4th seasons, seasonal short treks, 2 cartoons, and 2 more series in development later, and Doomcock is still pretty sure that the end is nigh.
And the metaphor that comes to mind is, Star Trek Discovery is about as intelligent as a retired syphilis-ridden Tijuana donkey that huffed furniture polish, ate lead paint chips, played for years in the NFL as a linesman without a helmet, and got dropped on its head from a great height.
Have you ever, really listened to one of Doomcock's insults? Really broke down what he's trying to say? Because they kinda don't make any sense. Let's do that, shall we? Discovery is about as intelligent as... Now, I would presume in a setup like this, you would list a series of things that are dumb, i.e. not intelligent, while ostensibly trying to present them in a comical manner. So we know he's going to compare them to a donkey, animals that are somewhat known for being stubborn and dumb. Forget that they're actually intelligent animals with exceptional memories. We'll accept the premise. So this donkey is not only dumb, it's retired. I didn't even know how to make a joke about that. Just go on to the next one, maybe it'll clear things up. The donkey is also syphilis-ridden. Syphilis. Because apparently the only thing Doomcock ever learned about syphilis is what he learned about Al Capone. But let's try the next one. Tijuana. I think you all get the implication here. You know how much dumber things are when they're Mexican. So not only is Doomcock needlessly going overboard, insulting a show he doesn't like, he managed to slip some ageism, ableism, and racism right under everyone's noses in an insult that doesn't even make any sense.
That's a fair analogy for how mind-blowingly stupid Star Trek Discovery is, provided the donkey wasn't very bright in the first place.
So you're saying that Star Trek Discovery...
Oh yeah, and he talks to a Cthulhu doll in a fez.
So you're saying that Star Trek Discovery is as dumb as a bag of differently abled hammers that have pounded on each other and pounded on each other and pounded on each other until they reach the point where 2 + 2 equals duh.
Gentlemen, jugs, squids, plushies, whatever you are. The reason we stopped using the R word and started using terms like disabled, differently abled, special needs is because the R word started out as a generally acceptable, if inaccurate, term that eventually morphed into a slur through misuse and bad faith. The slur implied that people with disabilities and special needs were somehow dumb or stupid, lesser than everyone else. You're not supposed to take the new words and phrases and just use it as a fill-in for the slur. Your little squid person there just called differently abled people stupid.
Well put, Harvey Cthulhu. Yes, indeed. Any show where you have sonar in space.
Okay. So this is a favorite one of fandom menacey types and Doomcockians. There's an episode of Star Trek Discovery that features a planet where all the flora emits a harmonic vibration, and there's a structure that broadcasts that sound into space. Not really knowing how science works and devoid of actually reviewing the episode for context, outrage reviewers like Doomcock, who are looking for any minor grievance to dramatize, zero in on the line of dialogue where Michael says the resonance can be used as
a form of sonar.
Interestingly, if you search for sonar in space, the clip from this episode is uploaded with the sarcastic subtitle, The Science of Discovery, implying that Discovery doesn't know science. Even though Star Trek has been getting science wrong for a very, very, very long time. The whole of Star Trek is rife with scientific errors, and those are regarded as simply funny production mistakes that have no bearing on the quality or enjoyment of the franchise, or even the places the mistakes appear in. Slingshotting around the sun will not send you back in time, people. You'll just go fast and possibly explode. But the most telling part about that YouTube clip I mentioned is it conveniently edits out the part where Burnham mentions that the sonar is being broadcast electromagnetically into space. In other words, it's a radio signal, a type of sonar, not actual sonar. Discovery haters don't bother to learn more than surface details, then shake their fists at it. You'd think that they would have gotten just as upset over the photic sonar installed on the refitted Enterprise. Why does it even have that? Let's even forget the irony of people being mad that a Star Trek show suggested that sound waves travel in space. Star Trek, you know, that no sound in space show.
An AI that needs to read up on how to be the AI it already is, so it can become an AI.
One can only assume he's talking about the Season 2 antagonist here. Tell me you didn't watch Season 2 of Star Trek Discovery without telling me you didn't watch Season 2 of Star Trek Discovery. The AI wasn't trying to learn how to be an AI, it was trying to gain ultimate knowledge. There's a whole plot line through the season explaining and reiterating that. But when you don't actually watch the show...
And a production team that lets Mikey Spock actually hold her phaser backwards in a scene so that she's pointing it at herself, and they leave it in for broadcast.
This is the Star Trek production error that is a bridge too far for you? A backwards phaser? You know, let's take a look at the full sequence where the phaser is backwards. Light spoilers for this episode. No, go ahead and play the clip. The whole clip, the entire moment with the backward phaser. So you're telling me this great travesty of a production error, this damning evidence of an utter disregard for Star Trek, this holocaust of filmmaking that caused you to take to Twitter and say that Discovery is made for people who hate Star Trek by people who hate Star Trek, this thing you can't fathom how on earth it made it to broadcast, isn't even on screen for a full second. You out your damn mind. This is Star Trek we're talking about. A franchise that began where the stunt doubles' faces were visible even on the tiny black and white TVs of the era. Cameramen and crew were often visible off sides and in reflections. Futuristic devices sometimes had visible power cables. Starships often had inconsistent transporter room numbers or even decks. First Contact forgot New Zealand freaking existed. If milliseconds of a production error are the final straw for you, you should have ducked out of Star Trek starting with the original series.
But that said, the stupidity and incompetence of this blight on the cognitive reputation of humanity isn't all that Star Trek Discovery has going against it. No, Harvey. Star Trek Discovery is the antithesis of Gene Roddenberry's Star Trek. Whereas the original Star Trek showed a bright, optimistic future for humanity filled with altruism, optimism, and equality for all living beings, Star Trek Discovery is a dark, grim, hideous shithole chock full of severed baby heads, F-bombs, cannibalism in the form of tribbles corrupted with human DNA, and graphically violent eye torture.
So what we have here is yet another indication that Doomcock isn't entirely aware of what words mean. First of all, that's not what chock full means, and it gives an entirely inappropriate indication of what the series is about. Now, these are somewhat spoilers, and if you haven't seen Star Trek Discovery or Short Treks yet, you might want to skip to this timestamp. But here's what he gets wrong and misrepresents. The show is not chock full of severed baby heads. There is one baby head, and it's fake. It didn't actually happen in the context of the story and was meant to be misleading to people. Was it meant to be shocking to the audience? Absolutely. And that's okay. It is not chock full of F-bombs. It had about 2, maybe 3, if I remember correctly. Boomers like Doomcock are probably still a little too young to remember when a simple hell in the original series was something that a lot of TV shows weren't doing at the time and was taking a big risk doing. Discovery is on streaming, and it can say whatever the f it wants. For someone who starts every video with this adult language content advisory, it's a little hypocritical to be getting all Nancy pants about strong language in a Star Trek. A franchise that's had curse words for some decades. And here's a sentence I never thought I'd have to say. That's not how cannibalism works. For starters, there's a solid chance you and half of your audience have eaten human DNA before. It actually turns up in a number of foods, unfortunately, even vegetarian foods. Cannibalism is the eating of flesh of your own species, not genetically altered life forms. That's not the same thing. But also, and this is how you know neither Doomcock nor his audience bother to fact check anything they say or believe, that was a joke. It's part of a Short Trek's after credits fake commercial that's made to look like it was recorded on someone's VCR from the 1980s. It's very obviously a joke commercial making fun of the scientist we saw in the actual short. There isn't really a cereal called Tribbles made of tribbles in the Star Trek universe. Oh, and the eye torture scene is from Star Trek Picard, not Discovery, which is yet another reason why I don't think Doomcock actually watches any of the things he criticizes. But let's address this whole antithesis of Gene Roddenberry's Star Trek thing. Discovery isn't trying to be like every Star Trek that came before it. It's trying something new with its tone and its visuals, and that's okay. You don't have to like it. But this idea that the original Star Trek were all puppy dogs and Obama campaigns is forgetting that Star Trek had all kinds of dark stories. The idea wasn't just that we had achieved enlightenment, but that we had to keep working to maintain it, and that its continuance was tenuous and precious.
The Federation does have enemies. We must seek them out.
That's how it starts. But the road from legitimate suspicion to rampant paranoia is very much shorter than we think.
We saw multiple officers and scientists and citizens lose their way through the course of the franchise, and Discovery just explores, in part, one of those darker stories during darker times for the Federation. This isn't the first Star Trek to take place during a crisis, so seeing the Federation desperate or captains making decisions they ethically shouldn't be new to you. And let's not pretend like Star Trek has never, ever gotten gory at times. Times changed, and Star Trek has never been particularly afraid of pushing that envelope. Kind of makes me wonder where you've been all that time.
Star Trek used to be something the whole family could enjoy together.
I mean, mine still does.
But alas, Star Trek Discovery is only useful for driving away common household pests like cockroaches, who have better taste than that. And they
Shit.
Roaches eat poop, but they don't watch poop.
And that's why they will eventually inherit the Earth. They will be around long after we're all gone, and 20,000 years from now...
When cockroach scientists enter the Forbidden Zone and start excavating into the remains of a human city, they'll find a DVD of Star Trek Discovery and they'll say, yep, it all makes sense
We're
now.
already
Any
4.5
civilization greater
minutes
enough to
into
create
this
something like
video,
Star Trek
and he
Discovery
still
could
hasn't
never
gotten
survive.
to the
Now go ahead and
rumor.
burn those DVDs and let's go find some cold poop to munch on. Yummy.
Before I went off on this mini rant about the worst damn thing I've ever seen in my life, I told you that I have news of a rumor from multiple sources that claims the long intergalactic nightmare for Star Trek fans is one step closer to ending because, from what I've been told, Star Trek Discovery may have just shot its last episode.
That was a lot of words just to say, I have a rumor. Like, that could have been summed up in one sentence. I have sources that say season 4 is Star Trek Discovery's last season. That's literally all you said. Maybe looking to getting your own chorus.
I was contacted by a source that has given me reliable intelligence in the past, and this source claims that it is highly likely that Star Trek Discovery has filmed its final episode and that plans for an additional season beyond this one are being abandoned. Looks like, if this source is correct, with any luck we can finally take a leak on Star Trek Discovery's grave and say, it's dead, Jim, and it smells like urine.
Well, what exactly happened here, Doomcock? I mean, there's no way it could suck any worse than it already did. Your introduction here just made that very clear. There's no way the ratings could possibly be worse. Star Trek Discovery was the single lowest rated show broadcast on CBS in 2020, and that's a fact.
That's because that's because no one watches broadcast TV, Harvey. You're citing ratings for a series that was rebroadcast on over-the-air television, but whose primary home is on a premium streaming service. What era are you from where you think people are still sitting around in their easy chairs in the evening waiting for the primetime Friday night lineup? That's not how the vast majority of television is consumed anymore. I'm talking to a plushie. And like, what is it with you and people like you who don't seem to get that Discovery is in its 4th season? Bombs don't get renewed for multiple seasons. Bombs don't also inspire yet another series in the franchise by the same production crew, also going into its 2nd season. Nor do Bombs inspire 2 animated television series, one of which is also going into its 2nd season. This is not how failures or business works. Paramount is seeing big numbers internally, numbers from its streaming service which aren't typically shared by the public. No streaming service does that. And that's evidenced by how much they're investing into the franchise year after year after year. It's an unqualified success. The fact that you don't like it, well, that's just a you problem.
Hell, there's no way interest could be any lower. At this point, the Picard trailer landed with a big thud of indifference.
Ah yes, the big thud of 6.5 million views.
And no one is excited for Strange New Worlds or Prodigy.
I'm not even gonna look that up, you're full of
What straw broke this particular brain-damaged donkey's back?
Budget, Harvey. It may in the end be as simple as the budget. A source directly informed my source.
Wait, what?
A source directly informed my source.
Could you say that again?
A source directly informed my source.
So you have a source that has a source. So you're not even getting this firsthand from an insider. You have a guy who knows a guy.
I am your father's brother's nephew's cousin's former roommate.
That production of Star Trek Discovery has ended, and many production team members who have been employed on the show since season 1 have accepted other jobs and will not be returning as far as they know.
You know, this information would be more compelling if we had more specifics of what aspects of the production crew were leaving, like what departments saw most people leaving, or how many of those were contract workers and were temporary workers anyway. Just a general number of people leaving a show after filming wraps isn't especially telling information, especially if those people didn't have anything to do anymore once principal photography was over with. Like, the entire cast went home.
I asked my source to please seek confirmation on this rumor for me.
You asked your source to seek confirmation? The source who just told you the rumor to begin with? Or are you talking about another source? A little while ago you said you confirmed this with multiple sources, but you're talking now like you asked the same guy who told you the rumor in the first place to confirm said rumor? Is what?
And a few hours later, my source returned, having directly consulted their long-term contact inside Viacom CBS.
So it is the same guy, your source with a source guy. How does that even work?
And this is what allegedly happened. Quote, got it confirmed they ran out of money and were fighting.
Who were they fighting?
The only way they could finish the series was to raid money allocated for season 5. Secret Hideout asked for more money and basically were told to go f themselves, that what they were making was already not wanted and worthless.
Right, because that's how TV shows work. Make things that aren't wanted.
CBS said to Kurtzman,
can we just take a moment to point out how childish it is to use the most embarrassing stills you can find to somehow bolster your point? Then again, we are talking about a guy who looks like a strange combination of a Victorian-era British general and Iron Man if Tony Stark was a homeless person who lived next to a garage that threw out entire rolls of duct tape. So maybe my standards are a little too high.
it would be a better return on our investment to wipe our ass on the money and flush it down the toilet. Unquote.
Man, a few weeks after this video, CBS signed a 9-figure deal with Kurtzman that will ensure he works there for years. What would they have given him if they had liked him? Julie Chen?
That sounds a lot like you, Doomcock. Did they really say that, or are you pulling our legs?
Wow, Doomcock's conscience is Cthulhu. Yeah, that tracks.
My hand to God, Harvey, this is what my source told me. As to whether or not it's true, take it with a grain of salt, but this is in fact verbatim what my source told me. And my source has, as I said before, a source inside Viacom CBS, I am told, so if anyone would know, they would.
So this is something you'll see quite often from these outrage YouTubers. They'll tell you to take everything they say with a grain of salt, and then proceed to make outrageous claims with the assuredness of someone who has solid insider information, even if none of what they're saying makes any sense or stands up to any kind of scrutiny. But they always try to add that caveat that what they're saying might not be true, then proceed to drop a big steaming load.
But it's even worse, Harvey. Apparently, everyone wants to put a boot in the side of Star Trek Discovery while it's down.
Yeah, here we go.
Even longtime Star Trek licensees and toy companies. If you recall, Harvey, I reported a rumor years ago when Picard was in pre-production that licensees walked out of a meeting with CBS saying they didn't want to deal with any more of this horrible Secret Hideout STD garbage. Don't bother to call them in again until Star Trek goes back to being real Star Trek. Original Star Trek with Klingons instead of Klingorks and heroes instead of zeros.
The "it doesn't have toys, so it must not be popular" argument has to be one of the dumbest arguments ever invented by YouTubers, and I'm including flat earth arguments.
The licensees knew they couldn't sell that horrible crap. The public hated the new shows, the new actors, the new ship and prop designs, and they wanted nothing to do with Star Trek Discovery because it just won't sell.
Can you imagine a toy company telling a media giant like CBS that their properties are garbage and don't come to us again until you learn how to do your entertainment right? That's lunacy. The toy companies are not the people with the leverage in this situation. They might pass on a particular contract offer, but like Hasbro or Mattel aren't going to be the ones talking down to CBS. Can you imagine burning that bridge by being openly hostile to a mega corporation over a single property? You know, you were just complaining that Discovery isn't family friendly enough anymore. Did it never occur to you that that's intentional? That the series is targeting adults and that they aren't looking to make a big payout from toy lines, but from streaming services? Where did this must-have toys to be successful line of thought even come from? Also, here are Discovery toys. The Google's, it's right there.
And is that why we've never had any Star Trek Discovery toy lines?
Exactly, Harvey. They were true to their word. And the longtime licensees have reportedly been royally pissed about the hit the franchise has taken under Kurtzman and the subsequent loss of revenue to toy companies and other franchise-centric vendors, so much so that my source tells me, quote, Playmobil, just despite Secret Hideout, licensed that huge original Star Trek playset and said this show sucks so bad it will sell Star Trek the original series to people who see this, cry how bad it sucks, and get nostalgic for their kids to have real Star Trek toys, unquote.
I didn't think tortured logic was supposed to cause me physical pain. Doomcock might not be hearing voices in his jug, but I'm pretty sure his source with a source is tantamount to that. Let's just try to unpack this dodecahedron of dumb real quick. Why in Kronos' craggy caves would license holders be pissed about Star Trek Discovery? Prior to Star Trek Discovery, there were no Star Trek shows being actively produced. So why would they be mad that any show exists that they can't make toys out of now? That's not a loss of revenue, that's revenue that never existed in the first place. Also, toy companies don't make toys to spite random production studios. That's a ridiculous premise that should kinda go without saying. And not for nothing, that Playmobil playset is $500. It's very unlikely many parents will be buying this for their 10-year-olds and up for the nostalgias.
Then my source reiterated that Star Trek Discovery finished production a month ago. It has a high probability of being the final season because they ran out of money and had to spend funds allocated for Season 5 just to finish Season 4. At that point, I had some questions regarding this. I wrote to my source, quote, so they were already allocated money for Season 5? Isn't that kind of weird? What, it was just sitting there and they used it for Season 4? Wouldn't there be all sorts of legal trouble for misappropriation of funds? And what, CBS doesn't get the 2 seasons they bargained for? Unquote.
You know, Dollar Store Silver Sentinel actually makes a good point here, for once. How in the heck did Secret Hideout spend funds allocated for Season 5 without raising all kinds of alarm bells? The implication seems to be that they spent the money but didn't get permission, which is not how that works.
To which my source replied, quote, apparently they amortized a Season 5. They had a 1-season renewal, but Secret Hideout wanted to split that season into 2 half seasons, but they ran out of money on the first half of the split season, unquote.
So, really, according to this rumor, they were renewed for 1 full season, but Secret Hideout decided to split it into 2 half seasons and just call them short seasons. A 2-for-1 kind of deal. But they used up all their money on the first half of the season, so there will be no subsequent second half because CBS told them to go f themselves. Is that right?
Yeah, that's just not how any TV show is made. Typically, television shows are budgeted per episode as opposed to per season. Either way, you're going to have an episode budget with someone like a line producer watching your spending like a hawk. You can't just spend and spend and spend and have no money left over before the season is done. In fact, that happened in season 2. The premiere went majorly over budget, and along with allegations of abusive behavior directed at the writing staff, the showrunners were fired. People are watching what you spend. That's how any giant corporation works. And presumably you're getting your split season idea, which is also not a thing anyone does, from Geeks Worldwide, who reported last year that season 4 and 5 of Discovery were being shot back to back. But they're not spending money like a cartoon drunk imbibing beer straight from the spigot. None of this is how shows are produced. But the biggest issue I see here with your rumor is how your source inconsistently says either filming has wrapped or production has wrapped. Which is it? Because either way, they are way ahead of schedule, like improbably ahead of schedule. I could see where they might have finished filming in June. You uploaded this video in early July, and June is when they were originally expecting to have completed filming. But this creates several issues with your source. If they just finished filming and they are already out of money, then how are they going to pay for post-production? There's millions of dollars worth of special effects that still have to be done once a sci-fi series completes filming. But if they're actually done with production and not just filming, how on earth did they manage to complete months of post-production work in less than a month? That would have to be some kind of Guinness World Record on an order of magnitude. You would think, though, someone who's supposed to be so in tune with Star Trek Discovery news and rumor would have remembered that production shut down for 2 weeks in April over a COVID-19 scare. That put them behind to the point where they stated they wouldn't be done filming until sometime in August or September. So they were already behind schedule when you uploaded this. It seems like that would have been an important question to ask your source, considering they're claiming it wrapped impossibly early, production or filming. And what do you know, while I was editing this video, Doug Jones tweeted out that season 4 of Discovery had just finished filming on August 24th. Which means even by the time this video uploads, there will still be months of post-production work to complete before the season can wrap production. It's almost like this rumor was made up by someone who not only doesn't have insider information, but hadn't even really been paying attention to Star Trek Discovery news in the first place.
That's how the rumor goes, Harvey. Now, I can't say that any of this is verified. I can only attest to the fact that I was provided this information from a source claiming to have knowledge of the production.
That was quite possibly the most word salad sentence I've ever heard. You just tried to make "dude trust me" sound fancy and failed fantastically.
I've waited for years for this nightmare to end. And while we still have more brain damage coming to us courtesy of Season 2 of Picard, Season 1 of Strange New Worlds, that I'm told is just as bad as Star Trek Discovery, and the horrible new Prodigy show that got shunted over to Paramount Plus from Nickelodeon, and there's a downgrade, at least the cornerstone of this bizarro shrine to ultimate suck may at long last be dead. Only time will tell if some other Tijuana donkey with brain damage and a bankroll will step in, take a look at the Star Trek Discovery budget, say 2 + 2 = duh, and invest.
Brought it right back around to the racism and the 2 + 2 joke, huh? Must be in a comedy workshop. Also, Star Trek Prodigy will still be airing on Nickelodeon and Paramount Plus, Mr. Star Trek News.
But absent that theoretical jackass, Mikey Spock may jump around on a pizza cutter with a mushroom drive and pixie dust. No more. From the center of the earth, this is Dicktor Van Doomcock bidding you all, my friends, stay angry.
And there you have it, folks. Dicktor Van Doomcock, the lead member of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Sharts Club. A man who talks to an 8-legged stuffed animal dressed as a Shriner and wants you to take him seriously. A man who makes potentially $4,000 a month telling people what they want to hear, whether it's true or not. It's not. And if you're watching this, you probably already know Doomcock is full of doompucky, but I feel like the depth of how bad his information isn't truly understood. If his videos are chock full of anything, it's misinformation and bloviating insults padding out rumor that he very likely made up himself. He starts this video by saying that he confirmed these things with multiple sources, but ends up only focusing on one source who isn't even a direct source. It's a guy who knows a guy, which in the realms of credibility is right up there with "trust me, I know," and viral memes that unironically quote The Onion as a source. Doomcock is just another example of what makes fandom toxic to begin with. This inherent sense of ownership that fans think they have over a franchise, and how egregious a sin it is when the franchise doesn't do exactly as they envision. Notice how he universally refers to Star Trek fans as if they are a monolith that only agrees with Doomcock and his audience. They can't fathom there being a fandom that actually really enjoys these new Star Trek series. And even when they do, they can only register it in terms of people liking things of low quality. Not that entertainment is subjective. That never even enters their minds. Personally, I feel like there isn't enough pushback against this kind of insane rhetoric, as while you have fandom who are just gatekeepy trolls, this actually has an impact on other fans, especially younger fans who don't realize there isn't a universal right way or wrong way to judge entertainment. I've met and known people who judged media solely on the basis of these popular reviewers, without ever once questioning their opinion or seeking to make up their minds for themselves. This has given people like Doomcock an obscene amount of power over public opinion that he really doesn't deserve. So my little channel and I are going to try and make more content like this that calls out the absurdity of news in reviews like this one. And hopefully more people will follow suit. There's already people out there who call out Doomcock on his BS, but I think there should be more. And I'm going to try to make more content like this, calling out the BS of people who lie. You don't have to like Star Trek Discovery, but if you dislike something on the sole basis of someone else's opinion, you're letting that person control that aspect of your life. Ironically, those same people will often tell you to think for yourself. Well, that's the one place where I agree wholeheartedly. Watch it for yourself and decide. And if you don't have the time or the desire to watch it, fine. But then you can't have an honest opinion about it, which is why I strongly recommend you just watch everything. If you think I did a good job calling out Doomcock and would like to see more videos in my Why You're Wrong About series, join my Patreon. Just like the channel here, that's patreon.com/digitaljedimaster. I'd be more than happy to make these videos full time, and if you can help support me in that endeavor, and you want to see more outrage entertainment YouTubers get called out on their BS, then this is the perfect way to kill 2 Cthulhus with 1 Fez. I'm Digital Jedi, and that's why you're wrong. Peace out, everyone.